Hello, I'm Nobby Clark. Welcome to my workshop. I'm going to start the first stage of machining the parts for the PM Research engine kit. The first part I'm going to work on is the base casting. It's a cast iron base. But there's one thing I actually want to check on this before I actually set this up on the milling machine anyway, and I'm going to bring the camera in a little bit closer just to show you what that test is that I want to make to this first. So bear with me just a moment. But it seems that the best thing to do first on the base is actually to machine the bottom side of the base to make sure that this is absolutely flat. So this needs to be machined all the way around here. I'll put it on the surface plate. You see there is actually a rock to it, which obviously you don't want, because once that part is machined, all the other measurements are made from the base itself. But what I wanted to do was to make sure that these guide rails on the top here are already reasonably parallel to the base itself. Now, what I bought for myself recently, something I've wanted to have for quite a long time, is a little comparator stand. I found this one on eBay, and it literally is about the cheapest one I could find, really. I've been looking for one of these for a little while now. This one is, the brand is Kafa, and they're made in Germany, so it is, although I thought it was very old, but it's quite a precision item. But when I checked on the internet, the agent for this product in the UK illustrate this is exactly the same now as it probably was many years ago. I've checked this all over. You see it's got this plate on here, and it has a ground and honed surface to it, which is obviously is parallel to the 3 feet on the base. I've stoned all these feet as well, just to make sure there's no marks on them. You can't really stone this part, but feeling over that, your finger being very sensitive, there are no marks on it at all. It has got some sort of usage marks on it. There's some little rust staining on the column, but it all works perfectly okay. I fitted it with one of my own dial indicators. This is a 1/2 thousandths indicator, so more than accurate enough for this job. Now the problem is that this base here, it isn't really large enough to measure this, because of the awkward shape, and obviously I want to measure all the way along these surfaces. So what I've dug out of these parallels, they're in pretty rough condition when I've had these for quite a number of years now. I bought them at a model engineering show, and they are pretty horrible really. But what I've done is I've stoned all the flat surfaces here. If you put them together, they are sort of smooth across here. But what I've also done is gone along both of them with a micrometer and measured all the way along here. Then they are absolutely the same to one another, perfectly aligned. So I'm going to put these on the top here, so we make sure that's nice and clean and that these surfaces are okay. If I mount them on there. Now the idea is that to put the engine base onto here, underneath the indicator. So we'll put that on there, and then bring the probe down onto the surface. I can then zero this up. Now, sort of bearing in mind that as this is a fairly rough casting, rough on here and rough under the base as well, the needle obviously is going to bounce around quite a lot, but I'm hoping that it's not going to be too far out. So if I run that along, you see the needle does bounce around quite a bit up to the end here, and I've already gone through this anyway, and allowing for the amount of it, the amount that it's bouncing around. I'll try and keep that in the centre if I can. I've done this sort of a number of times, but it seems to be about 3,500 thousandths sort of difference all along here, which I think is going to be acceptable as a start, taking into account the quality of the castings. And when these, that's been mentioned by a number of people that have bought these kits, that the casting for the base is very, very rough indeed. So that's obviously got to be accepted. And by no means as nicer castings as you get on the English Stuart kits. The castings on those are very, very nice compared, but one comment was that actually the roughness of what's left on the casting after all the machining's done gives you a very, very nice surface when it's painted. So what I've done is to take all the sort of flashing off the edge and where the sort of gate was on here, I've just filed it down, not to make it absolutely perfect, and I didn't want to sort of file all over here. I wanted to leave it sort of reasonably rough anyway. I've tried to keep this side as flat as I possibly can, because that edge there will be a data edge for me anyway, and I'll explain about that in a minute. So I think that's going to be okay. So my proposal is to mount it on these two rails upside down on the mill table, and I can put a toe clamp down inside here with a stud going through the middle, and then bolt that down. So obviously mounted onto probably a 1, 2, 3 block underneath here to raise it up to clear all of these parts, and then support the end here probably with a machinist jack or something like that to hold it nice and square to the mill table, and then machine all the way round here to hopefully give me a nice flat surface that has no rock in it at all, because all the measurements, as I mentioned, will be made from here up to the rails here and all the other stages of it. Now what I propose to do, once I've machined the bottom of the base, is to mount this onto my fixture plate. That's why I want a pretty good surface here, so that I can bring this up to the dowel pins on the fixture plate, and then try to very, very accurately test everything to make sure that this surface is square and everything here is square to the base. You know, I did go to a lot of trouble when I made the fixture plate to make sure that the holes that take the dowel pins were absolutely square to the fixture plate in the first place. So once that's in position, then I can machine the rest of the base, because you've got obviously the casting draft here. This is where the cylinder is mounted onto that end, so that's got to be machined flat. On this side here, the flywheel is mounted, so that needs to be machined flat, and also this side where the little cam goes on here as well. So there's a lot of machining to do actually on the fixture plate. This part here has got to be machined out here as well. Looking at the plans, there's an accurate measurement from the base up to the top of the rail. So, but on the plans it shows the rails are raised above this part here. So what I've got to do is make some measurements here so that I can hopefully machine the base flat, still leaving a tiny amount just to clean up the tops of the rails here to bring it to the correct height measurement. That's the one thing that I'm sort of more worried about than anything else, to get that accurate. So the height position here is also the center line here for the hole which is drilled through from the cylinder, and also the height here is the same as this to here, where the shaft goes through to mount the flywheel and the cam on as well. So that for me is quite a sort of a critical measurement to make. So I'm hoping all that's going to work out nicely. Nothing much more to tell you at this stage. Obviously, once I've got this set up on the milling table, I'll bring you back so you can see me machine around here, and then once I've got it mounted onto the fixture plate, I can bring you back for various other machining processes on it. There's a huge amount to do on this. As surprisingly enough, your little holes need drilling in here for oiling positions for the flywheel shaft, and obviously you need to drill some little holes in all these positions so you can mount it onto a base, a nice wooden base. And obviously the tops of these will need just to be faced off to make sure that the bolts seat nicely in all of those positions as well. So it's going to be, I think, a very, very interesting project to do. I'm sort of looking forward to it. Obviously sort of nervous about drilling holes in it and machining parts, that you don't make a mistake and ruin any parts of it. The thing with the Stuart castings is being made in England. If you do damage a part, you can very, very easily buy replacements for any damaged parts. This would be difficult because although this came from the UK supplier of these kits are actually made in America, so I rather doubt that the distributor here carries any spare parts. So if a spare part was required, it's I guess going to be colossally expensive to source another part for it. So on my part, there's a lot of care to be taken here. Let's just move those off so they don't unbalance. But I really love this little this little stand as well. It's very, very nice. I've got to source a nice little box to keep it in as well, to keep it safe in the workshop. But anyway, perhaps join me in a bit where I get this set up on the mill table. I've set the base up on the mill table. What I should have done really, I guess, is take the vise off to do this, so that I could put this in the centre part of the table itself, but I didn't really want to do that. It means sort of retramming the vise back in again, and the next part of the process is probably going to be carried out on the vise anyway. I'll probably, once I've mounted this onto the fixture plate, probably mount the fixture plate on the top of the vise so I can do the rest of the machining. But anyway, I had to set this up. Well, in fact, this is the third time, because I'd forgotten to take into account the limited travel I've got in the Y movement. So I've got that set up now so that the cutter will actually reach over this little part here. So it's now set so it's just slightly beyond that point. And then the second time I set it up, it was too far down toward you, and the travel in the X movement wasn't enough to get to this end of it. So I've got it set now so that the cutter will actually reach all points on the base. It's mounted. I've mounted those two rails on the top of the engine base onto the top of a 1, 2, 3 block, and I've put luckily the smaller of the little toe clamps I've got drops quite nicely inside of here, and down in here there's a little step inside the casting, so I've got the little bolt going up through one of the holes in the 1, 2, 3 block, and that's locked down nice and tightly. You've obviously, with the casting, got to be very, very careful not to over tighten. It's got to be tight enough so there's no movement in it at all. But if you over tighten onto the casting, there is a danger, of course, of damaging the casting, perhaps cracking the casting. And I've also, if you can, just about so I've got a 1, 2, 3. A machinist jack under this side, so that goes up into the little recess under here, just to support that end, not to rely on it only being supported at this end. So hopefully that's all going to be okay. What I also did was I used a strong torch in here so that I could look through this way to make sure that those rails are in contact all the way along the 1, 2, 3 block. It's no point in having it if you can actually see any light under here, because then that would give you a false position along the top. So that's fine. I can't see any light coming from under here at all, so I think that's all going to be okay for this. So now I'm ready to start machining this off. I took some measurements from the rails to the base, and really there's not as much to come off as I previously thought. So all I'm needing to do really is just to machine this so that it cleans it all up, to give me a smooth surface all the way around, so that hopefully this will lay flat onto my surface plate with no rocking movement in it at all. So hopefully everything's going to be okay there. So I'll start off the machining process, show you a bit of it. No point in filming the whole part. What I'm also going to do is put a piece of old cloth down here as well, just to try and stop too much of the cast iron from getting everywhere. Try and keep it off the mill vise as well. Try and keep that clear, and I'll put another piece around the front here just to try and keep as much of it off the mill table as I possibly can. I'm sure that's going to help a little bit, because this is really messy stuff to cut, and once this is all done, the table of the milling machine's got to be cleaned up very thoroughly. But I'll just run the cutter along the back here, just to make sure I've got good contact from the cutter all round. This is purely going to be a clean-up pass, so that hopefully I've got a nice flat surface all the way across. I had to make a bit of an adjustment because it wasn't cleaning up all the way down here, so I've adjusted it, so now I hope we'll reach a good clean up position all the way around the casting. Well, hopefully that's going to be okay. You see by all the mess, it's a horrible messy process of machining cast iron. It does make a terrible mess, but at least this has probably helped a bit by having these bits of cloth here, but I can sort of go around it with a vacuum cleaner now. It looks as though I've covered all the whole surface all the way round. So what I need to do is obviously give this a bit of a clean up. I can't make my mind up whether I should drill the little holes here. I'm just wondering whether it would be better to do that from the other side or the top side of the casting. I think that may be better, because what I want to do when I've got this mounted onto the fixture plate is to face off the ends of these as well, so that I've got a nice flat surface for the little bolts that will go through here to secure it to a nice wooden base. So I think that all seems to be okay, but obviously I need to get it onto the surface plate and make sure I've got no rocking movement on it at all now. So obviously I'll bring you back for that. Well, that's the bottom of the base machined all round, and I've got a sort of a reasonable finish all the way round here, and putting it onto the surface plate, it's not rocking now as it was before. It sits nicely onto the on its base, so I think I've got a nice finish to it. I brought the inspection stand, comparator stand out again, and I found that I can actually use this back to front. There's enough weight in this to more than support the weight of the clock gauge, so by just turning it that way round, I could have done this before, I suppose, I can actually get the probe onto the rail and just sort of well, a bit difficult to zero it up. It's still obviously got this rough surface on the top here, but running it backwards and forwards, I'm still getting, well, actually I think slightly less movement. No, probably about the same actually along here. So at least now that I could actually set this up now onto my fixture plate, I've taken a measurement again from the base to the tops of these rails, and I have got enough material available to just machine these surfaces to clean them up. So I think that's probably what I'm going to do next. After I've got it set up onto the fixture plate, obviously I'm going to take my time doing that to make sure I've got everything set nice and squarely onto the fixture plate before I start doing anything else. So I think I'll machine these first. The sort of flashing in here, I might actually just file some of that out first, just to sort of clean that up. I'll have a look at the plans to see what distance that is, because I think that actually needs machining through there anyway. So if I think I'll perhaps take some of the roughness off so that the cutter's not got too much work to do in there. Anyway, so it'll be on to the next stage. And as I mentioned, if I bring the camera along, I'm just going to swing this around, you see that I've got all the plans mounted into a nice sort of transparent folder. I won't have the camera on those too long because there's obviously a copyright on those. But it's just so that I don't destroy the plans that came with it, and these planes here, I can scribble notes on them. It doesn't matter at all. These are sacrificial copies. So there we are for the moment. So I'll perhaps bring you back for a little bit more machining, but I don't want to make this video too long, so I may only do just one bit and then perhaps wait to show you more at the next, or perhaps on the next video. So I'll perhaps bring you back briefly in a while. I've set this up on the fixture plate, as you can see. Now sometimes there's a little bit of luck involved with setting things up, but what I've done here is these two dowel pins, whoops, make sure that doesn't push all the way through. These dowel pins here, I've got the base pressed up against those, because I know that all the dowel pins are pretty much in alignment to the both edges of the fixture plate, so I could push it up against those and then lock it. I've locked it down on the little flanges here all the way round, and it just turned out, just to hold it in place, that these dowel pins also just slightly pushed into the hole, so that helped to hold it in position while I was getting it all clamped down. One test that I've made, I'm not relying on what I can see by eye, but I can actually see that the edge of the casting here is pretty well in line with this edge here, just looking at it visually. Now the things that I've got to machine are these really just to clean them up along the top so that they are completely parallel to the base, and I need to machine off this end here, because obviously with the casting draft here, this has got to be milled flat because the cylinder is mounted against that, so that's got to be, you know, sort of completely in line with the casting. And also I want to machine these little surfaces here where the flywheel goes against and the cam goes on the other side, and there are all sorts of other operations that I need to do. But the thing is that keeping this on the fixture plate for other operations like drilling the hole right the way through here for the shaft for the flywheel and cam, I can mount this way up, or the other way up, doesn't matter, this way up probably. What I will probably do is mount this against an angle plate on the mill table, so that I can hopefully drill through here. And I know that if I set this up carefully, if everything is in line with this base here, everything will drill quite squarely through there. And then there's also a hole to drill through here as well, which is going to be quite a dicey thing to do actually. We'll meet that problem when it comes up. Now, to check that I've got it in not only in alignment this way but got in alignment that way, what I did was put a 1, 2, 3 block on the back here, and then use one of my set squares, put that onto hold that against the 1, 2, 3 block, press that up against the casting, and then run that up against the end of the casting. Just looking at the back of the camera, can you actually see that? Yeah, against the back of the casting here, to make sure I've got that in alignment, and that looks to be perfect actually. So that confirms that that's okay. I also did it on this end, if I can get the square in there, on that end as well. I know it's rather a crude way of doing it, but it's proved to be quite effective. So that's sort of square against these, bearing in mind of course that all of these surfaces are quite are quite rough at the moment anyway. These obviously aren't machined, it's only the faces here. Everything else is left as the sort of sand casting made it. So I'm sort of quite happy that this is all fixed down nicely. Again, I've clamped it down very, very tightly with my small toe clamps that I made especially for the fixture plate. So now I can mount this in. I'm going to mount this into the vise on the mill table, as I've done before. The vise is already trammed in perfectly, so that should bring everything here into to register. And I'm going to then just machine along these just to give a bit of a clean up. But I've got I've forgotten how much I've got. I've got, you know, a fair bit that I can machine these down just to clean them up. So there's a reasonable amount, if you like, left over to machine those off. Well, I've got the fixture plate mounted up in the vise on the milling machine, and I've used my adjustable wedge parallel under here to make sure that everything is completely level. Oh, here you see I've got the fixture plate mounted in the milling machine vise. I've set the fixture plate up in this way before, and underneath here I've got my adjustable wedge parallel to hold everything nice and square, so everything is square to this surface at the back. I've already machined the rear surface here so that I could judge by how much depth I needed to clean this up, so that I could now just bring the cutter across to this side to machine this face here as well. There we are. So I've got both sides machined now, so they hopefully are both these were parallel to the base here, but obviously I can check that on the surface plate later on. I think for this video I'm going to leave it here, and then I'll make perhaps a separate video machining some of the other features on the base. Otherwise it's going to make this video much too long. So thanks for joining me for this this sequence, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you think that I'm doing things wrong in the way I'm setting things up here, you know, please let me know in the comments if you think I could do it in a better way. But I had to sort of think quite hard about how I was actually going to approach this to get everything as accurate as I possibly could. So I mean, do tell me if you think there's a better way of doing it, although in terms of this model it's too late because I've already done it. Anyway, thanks a lot for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video very soon. Bye for now.